Listen, no contact is powerful, but it's not enough. If you really want him to feel it, to remember you, you've got to go beyond silence. This isn't about getting him back. This is about leveling up so high he can't forget you, even if he tried. Let's talk about what that looks like. Because starting today, you're not just unavailable, you're unforgettable. No contact isn't the finish line, it's the starting point. When someone walks away, disrespects your boundaries, or shows you they're not capable of loving you the way you deserve, the most common advice is to go no contact. And yes, it works. Not because it's a mind game, but because it stops the cycle of emotional chaos and gives you a chance to breathe. But here's what most people get wrong. They think going silent is the win. They think blocking a phone number or deleting someone off social media is enough. It's not. No contact is not a strategy for revenge. It's a boundary for your healing. But if you stop there, you're just sitting in silence with all that pain still buzzing in your chest, waiting for them to notice. That's not power. That's still being emotionally tied to someone who has already shown you they're not willing to show up for you. This is where the real work begins. You don't need them to text you. You don't need them to chase you. What you need is to sit with yourself long enough to figure out why you gave so much of yourself to someone who didn't value it. That takes more strength than silence ever will, because no contact can be a shield, but if you don't do the internal healing, it becomes a cage, a quiet one, a lonely one, and you deserve better than that. You deserve growth. You deserve clarity. You deserve to feel powerful in your own skin without waiting for validation from the person who hurt you. So no contact, yes. It's the first move. It gives you distance. It gives you room. But what you do with that space is what changes the game. Use it to look at the habits that got you into a situation where your love was being poured into someone who didn't have the capacity to hold it. Ask yourself, was I loving them or was I chasing approval? Was I showing up for love or was I showing up for the hope of being chosen? These aren't easy questions, but they're the ones that will pull you out of the emotional loop you've been stuck in. And here's the truth most people avoid. Part of you wanted them to notice your absence. You hoped the silence would echo loud enough that they'd miss you, change, and come back. That's human. But if they didn't choose you when they had access to your heart, they're not going to value you just because you went quiet. They have to grow on their own. And you have to grow in a direction that doesn't wait on them to catch up. So this silence, let it be your cocoon. Let it be the space where you figure out who you are without them. Let it be the place where you start building the life you actually want, not the one you were trying to survive in. This is not about punishing someone. This is about freeing yourself, because the real finish line isn't when they text you. The real finish line is when you don't even care if they do. When your peace is louder than your longing, when your boundaries are stronger than your hope, when you realize that walking away wasn't about getting them to notice, it was about you finally noticing yourself. That's what going beyond no contact really means. You don't just want space, you want your power back. That's what this is really about. When someone breaks your trust, when they disrespect your worth, or when they leave you feeling like you're not enough, going no contact might feel like you're finally taking a stand. But deep down, what you truly crave isn't distance, it's restoration. It's that sense of control, confidence, and clarity you lost somewhere in the process of loving someone who couldn't or wouldn't love you the right way. That power wasn't stolen from you all at once. It was taken in small, subtle ways. Every time you excused their behavior, every time you accepted the bare minimum, every time you made yourself smaller to keep the peace. A piece of you was handed over. And now you're not just trying to get away from them, you're trying to get you back. No contact can create silence, but it doesn't automatically restore power. Silence without intention can become passive. It can become another form of waiting. Waiting for them to notice, waiting for them to change, waiting for closure that may never come. And that's not true power. That's still giving your energy to someone else. The moment you stop waiting for them to fix it, to explain themselves, to come back with the apology that never shows up, that's the moment you begin reclaiming your power. That shift is where everything starts to change. Power doesn't look like anger or control or revenge. Real power is quiet, grounded, and secure. It's waking up and realizing you don't need their validation to feel worthy anymore. It's choosing to prioritize your peace over their presence. It's knowing that you're allowed to have standards that don't bend just because you miss someone. You can miss someone and still not let them back into your life. You can love someone and still choose yourself. That's power. And that's what you're really after. You don't need space just to prove a point. You need it to clear the noise, to get back in tune with your gut, your intuition, the part of you that knew something felt off long before you were willing to admit it. Power comes from honoring that voice again, the one that told you deep down you were being breadcrumbed, the one that whispered you deserved better, even when your heart didn't want to believe it. No contact clears the stage. But now you've got to step into the spotlight. You've got to fill that space with habits that build you back up. Start with the basics. How you speak to yourself, what you feed your mind, who you surround yourself with, what you tolerate, what you believe about love, about worth, about what you're capable of. These things are not just fluff. They are the bricks that rebuild your power. And look, it's okay if you feel weak right now. It's okay if you're crying, if you're tempted to break the silence, if you feel like you're falling apart. That doesn't mean you're powerless. It means you're human. But every time you choose not to reach out, every time you choose to journal instead of text, to cry and breathe through it instead of begging for closure, you're pulling your power back in, one decision at a time. Rebuilding yourself after emotional damage is not about pretending to be unbothered. It's about healing the parts of you that accepted less than you deserved and deciding with clarity and intention that you will never go back to that version of yourself again. Because this version, the one rising from silence, from heartbreak, from self-neglect, is becoming someone stronger, wiser, and far more powerful than she ever was before. The real glow up is mental, not just physical. When we talk about moving on, healing, or making someone regret losing us, the first thing people think of is changing how they look. New hair, new clothes, a gym routine. The kind of revenge glow up you see all over social media. And sure, it feels good to look good. There's power in transformation, but here's the truth that hits harder than any makeover. If you don't fix what's going on in your mind, it doesn't matter what you fix on the outside. You can lose the weight, change your style, post the pictures, but if your confidence is still tied to whether or not they notice, you're still living for their attention, not your healing. The most unforgettable version of you isn't the one they see. It's the one who finally sees herself, the one who rebuilds from the inside out, the one who sits with the pain instead of running from it. That kind of transformation doesn't get as many likes online, but it's the kind that lasts. When you begin to understand your worth outside of someone else's opinion, when you stop measuring your value based on who stays and who leaves, that's the moment you start to glow in a way that no filter can touch. Mental glow up means choosing peace over patterns. It means breaking the habit of chasing people who are emotionally unavailable because deep down, you're trying to earn love you should have received freely. It means recognizing the triggers that keep pulling you back into toxic cycles and learning how to pause instead of react. It's about reprogramming your self-talk, moving from why wasn't I enough to I was more than enough. They just weren't ready. That switch is everything, because as long as your inner world is built on doubt, insecurity, and self-blame, no external change will make you feel whole. You want to make him remember you? Heal in a way that's undeniable. Heal in a way that radiates through your decisions, your boundaries, your energy. That kind of healing doesn't shout. It simply is. It shows up when you don't respond to the bait. It shows up when you stop obsessively checking your phone. It shows up when you realize that you don't need revenge. because becoming the version of you who finally respects herself is the real closure. You become unforgettable not by being louder or prettier or harder to get, but by becoming unshakable in who you are. There's something magnetic about someone who's at peace, who's not trying to prove anything, who's focused on their growth, their purpose, their path. That's what makes people remember you, not because you disappeared, but because you reappeared, better, wiser, calmer. That kind of evolution doesn't happen overnight. It happens in the quiet moments when you choose growth over reaction, when you take responsibility for your part, forgive yourself for staying too long, and commit to never abandoning yourself again. This isn't about impressing them. This is about finally impressing yourself. Finally becoming the woman who walks into a room and doesn't shrink. The woman who no longer doubts her intuition, who no longer begs for love that isn't freely given, who no longer sacrifices her peace just to keep someone around. That woman, she glows from the inside out. And once you become her, trust me, they'll feel it. Not because you needed them to, but because the light you built in the dark is too strong to ignore. Stop waiting for him to notice. Focus on becoming unforgettable. That shift right there, it's everything. Because waiting is passive. It leaves your healing in someone else's hands. It gives them all the power and keeps you stuck in a cycle where your peace is on pause until they come back, apologize, or acknowledge your worth. But you don't need someone to see your value to know you have it. You don't need closure from the person who caused the wound to start healing it. The moment you redirect your energy from, I hope he sees what he lost, to, I'm going to become the version of me I almost forgot about, you begin to take your life back. Here's the truth. The people who can't love you right will always notice your absence. But that's not the same as valuing your presence. Let that sink in. Just because they feel the distance doesn't mean they've changed. Just because they miss you doesn't mean they're capable of giving you the kind of love you deserve. That's why you can't make becoming unforgettable about them. You do it for you. Because you're tired of shrinking, because you're tired of proving, because you've finally had enough of tying your worth to someone else's ability to recognize it. You don't become unforgettable by trying to be in their head. You become unforgettable by finally getting out of yours, by getting out of the overthinking, the what ifs, the spiral of questioning what you did wrong. You become unforgettable by rebuilding your life from a place of peace and purpose. That means waking up and deciding that you're no longer emotionally available to confusion, to half effort, to people who only reach out when it's convenient for them. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to announce your worth. You live it. That's how they feel the difference. And here's the part most people don't talk about. You don't need to do anything dramatic to make an impact. You don't have to become famous, start a business, or post cryptic quotes on Instagram. You just have to heal, truly heal, quietly, fully, deeply. You become unforgettable when your energy shifts, when you stop trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself, when you stop being afraid of being alone and start enjoying your own company. When your standards go up, your tolerance goes down, and your focus turns inward instead of outward. People feel it when your energy changes. They feel it when you're no longer in emotional limbo, when you stop reacting, when you stop hoping, when you stop waiting. That kind of peace makes people wonder what you've discovered about yourself, because they can sense that you've moved on in a real, grounded way. You want to leave a mark, leave with grace, leave with your dignity. Leave with silence that isn't loud, but firm. And then use that silence to build. Build your mind, your confidence, your future. That's the kind of transformation they remember, not because you made them, but because you stopped needing to. You were never meant to chase validation. You were meant to walk in self-respect. When you let go of trying to be remembered and start focusing on who you're becoming, you automatically become unforgettable. Not because they can't replace you, but because you finally stopped trying to be replaceable. You showed up differently, you gave deeply, and now you're growing in a way that can't be faked or replicated. That kind of energy doesn't beg, doesn't compete, and definitely doesn't wait. It evolves quietly, powerfully, authentically. And when someone finally realizes what they lost, they won't just remember what you looked like, they'll remember the version of you that didn't need to be chased to be valuable. Don't waste time proving your worth. He lost access to you. That's the truth you have to keep coming back to, especially on the days when you feel the urge to break your silence, explain yourself one more time, or show him all the ways you were good to him. When someone takes your love for granted, the most powerful thing you can do is not try to prove that you were worth keeping, because your worth isn't up for debate. It's not something to be negotiated, argued for, or submitted like a resume. The moment you start trying to prove you were enough, you've already placed your value in the wrong hands. He didn't walk away because you weren't worthy. That's not your fault, and it's not your responsibility to carry. And maybe he didn't walk away physically. Maybe he stayed in your life but emotionally checked out, or he played games, kept you confused, made you question what you meant to him. That's still a form of walking away. And the problem isn't that you cared. The problem is when you started tying your sense of identity to how he responded to your love. That's what we're undoing now. You have to stop thinking of it as being rejected. You were released from someone who couldn't hold you the way you needed to be held. You were pulled away from a situation that would have kept draining you. Sometimes what feels like abandonment is actually protection. You just don't see it until later. And when you finally do, you'll stop grieving the loss and start celebrating the lesson. But that starts now by realizing that the one who lost access to you isn't you. It's him. Because when someone walks away from someone loyal, kind, present, forgiving, and loving, they're not walking away from weakness. They're walking away from strength, and they didn't have the capacity to receive it. So what do you do now? You stop fighting for a seat at a table you were always too much for. You take all the energy you were pouring into trying to be seen and start using it to see yourself more clearly. The goal now isn't to make him regret losing you. That's a distraction. The real goal is to become so grounded in who you are that regret doesn't even matter. Because regret doesn't fix broken trust. It doesn't rebuild lost time. And it doesn't change the fact that when someone had you, really had you, they didn't show up the way they should have. That's their story to live with, not yours. You don't need to show up now and prove anything. You already did the showing up. You already gave your best. And just because someone didn't value it doesn't mean it wasn't valuable. The lesson here isn't be colder or never care again. The lesson is to stop proving and start protecting. Protect your peace, your energy, your standards. Let your life now reflect the truth that you've finally accepted. You were always the prize. And that means not entertaining people who have to be convinced. Not just him, anyone. You don't beg to be loved. You don't audition for someone's respect. You don't chase someone who couldn't recognize your worth when you were giving it to them freely. You move forward quietly, boldly, with your head high and your heart healing, because you're not the one who lost. You're the one who learned. And now you're done proving, because you know who you are, what you bring, and what you'll never accept again. That's what reclaiming your power looks like. And once you've done that, you don't need them to see it. You see it. And that's enough. When you realize that your focus has been entirely misplaced, that you were too busy trying to fix someone else's flaws or hoping they would finally change, that's when everything starts to shift. The truth is, it's never been about him. It's never been about winning him back, getting his approval, or proving that you're the one. The focus has always had to be on you, not just in terms of what you need from someone else, but what you need to give yourself. It's about understanding that your life, your love, your sense of worth doesn't rely on their participation. It's entirely dependent on your ability to stand firm in your own self-love and respect. When you finally realize that, it changes the game. Because at the end of the day, it's not about whether they miss you or want you back. It's about how you start to live your life for you, not for the hope that someone else will validate your worth. Most of us at some point have fallen into the trap of giving so much of ourselves to someone else that we forget who we are without them. You get lost in the dynamics of the relationship, their moods, their needs, their behavior. And you think that if you just give more, if you just love harder, if you just do better, they'll eventually see what you've given up for them. But here's the harsh truth. You can't make someone else see your worth. You can't make them love you in the way you deserve. What you can do, though, is realize your worth on your own. And that recognition, that shift in focus, is when you truly begin to let go. Shifting your focus isn't about pretending that you never cared or that you don't miss the good moments. It's about understanding that you've already given your best, and now it's time to give to yourself. Your energy, your time, your heart are precious. And the sooner you understand that, the sooner you'll stop waiting for someone who isn't emotionally available to recognize that you're worth every bit of effort you've been putting in. It's not about playing games or being passive aggressive. It's about respecting yourself enough to stop waiting for someone who's never truly been there for you. The love you've been giving out is yours to reclaim. The energy you've been expending is yours to redirect. What happens when you focus on yourself is powerful. You begin to see yourself as enough, not in comparison to anyone else, but in your own right. You start to realize that your value isn't determined by someone else's inability to see it. Your happiness doesn't need to be attached to their actions or their affection. Your joy doesn't depend on them choosing you over and over again. When you stop focusing on them, you start seeing all the ways you've neglected yourself. You realize that you've been filling a void that wasn't your job to fill. You've been chasing someone else's version of love while neglecting your own needs, desires, and dreams. And when you shift the focus back to yourself, you begin to build your own vision of what love, life, and peace look like without anyone's approval or validation. The moment you make this shift, you start to see your life in full color again. You start making decisions for yourself, not out of fear of abandonment or desperation for approval, but from a place of confidence. You stop questioning whether you're enough and start showing up for yourself in ways you've never done before. You stop sacrificing your worth just to get crumbs from someone who can't even see what they've been given. And that's when they start to feel the difference. Not because you're doing something to make them feel regret, but because your energy has shifted. You're no longer available to the emotional patterns you once tolerated. You've moved on from the idea that anyone has the power to define your value. The moment you stop waiting for them, you begin to redefine your own life on your terms. And that shift, it's unforgettable. It's the kind of power that doesn't need to be flaunted or explained. It simply is. When you focus on yourself and start living from a place of love and self-respect, you become magnetic. People notice the way you carry yourself, the way you stop accepting less than what you deserve, the way your peace radiates from within. That's when you become unforgettable, not because of the person you were trying to be for someone else, but because you finally become the person you were always meant to be for yourself. As we reflect on the journey of letting go and reclaiming our power, remember that you are not defined by anyone's inability to see your worth. You are not here to chase after validation or to prove your value. The greatest transformation comes from within, from choosing yourself over and over again. It comes from understanding that your worth is not determined by the opinions of others, but by the strength and clarity you find when you focus on yourself. You don't need to be reminded of your power. You were always powerful. Sometimes you just need to shift your focus, to stop waiting, to stop trying to prove anything. Once you do, you'll realize that the real glow up is not about what others see, but about how you stand in your truth, how you move forward in your own strength. So let this be the moment you decide to take back control of your life. Let it be the moment you choose your peace, your joy, and your growth. Don't look back. Keep moving forward with the assurance that when you walk in your own light, you become impossible to forget. Now, I want to leave you with a prayer. Father, we come before you today, thankful for the strength to let go and the wisdom to know that our worth is not defined by anyone but you. We ask for the courage to walk boldly in our truth, to release the past, and to embrace the future you have designed for us. Heal the wounds that still linger, restore our hearts, and remind us daily that we are worthy of love, peace, and respect. In your name we pray. Amen.